Well, welcome back everyone. I'd say that things are looking pretty good here for the start of August, wouldn't you say? To be honest with you, I think probably about the best that this has ever looked at the start of August. And of course, we're about to move, so isn't that just about right? But last year was probably a close second. It was doing pretty well at the start of August too, but this year, even despite the fact that we haven't had much rain for the last 3 weeks or so, and also I took a soil temp last week of just right around 90. It was like 89 point something. I haven't done it recently, but still, it seems to be doing just fine. I don't know what they have done to ryegrass in the past 10 years or so to make it so resilient of heat and all of these different stresses that before would have definitely wiped it out, but they've done something to it, and it's quite amazing, the genetics of how far things have come. So over here on this side too, I want to show you, maybe on camera you'll be able to see the difference in color right now between the ryegrass and the bluegrass. There's a pretty distinct line of where I have these model stands over here, so hopefully you'll be able to see that on camera, but you can definitely tell same exact program. And this ryegrass, especially during this heat, I don't understand, but the hotter that it gets, the darker that it seems to get, and the hotter that it gets on the bluegrass, the more that it looks not a lime green color, but it's just not as dark because I have the rye directly next to it for comparison. Also, just another reminder, I don't do any of my edging of the turf during this hot part of summer just because it exposes all of the roots and tends to burn them out really fast along the edges, so that program is still ongoing until I get to about maybe right around the start of September. I'll probably go back to the edging part. We don't really know exactly when we're moving. Things are really moving along out there, so I don't know exactly when we're moving. I've been trying to make a decision on what I should do with this in terms of leaving it the way that it is with real mode for selling the house, or possibly transitioning it up more to 1.5 to 2 inches, something like that. Obviously it's very stunning and grand in the way that it looks right now, but you know, 1.5 to 2 inches wouldn't still be that tall, but it would look more normal, if you will. Leave a comment down below if you have some thoughts on what you think I should do with that. Also, one quick look at the real mode. Fescue, no irrigation on this at all, so it's like 3 weeks of no rain basically. And it's starting to go dormant. I mean, look at this. Look at this cracking around. Pretty dry. You can tell there's a few cultivars in here that really don't look like they're even phased whatsoever by the heat. They look greener than can be. And then there's a couple that, this is a super dry spot. It's really compacted right through here, but right up here, not so bad. I'll keep you updated on that all the way through the end of whatever season we end up with here whenever we get moving to the new place. But it's been an interesting test. I'm gonna do some more real mowing tests of some fescue as we go. So welcome back to Westbury Acres. This is our, of course, soon to be home, and I have a ton of stuff already going on out here, and then plenty more that I'm planning for seeding this fall. A few renovation things up by the house, but also more plots and some fun stuff to do down here. So that's what I want to go over today. I want to measure out a few things, show you what my plan is. Some of it I don't even know what the plan is, so maybe you can help me with some of that too. So these are, of course, the test plots back here, and first things first today, I want to measure these off again and make sure, just over time, it seems like the lines have been blurred. I want to make sure that they're all even. If they're not even anymore, I want to try to make sure that I have nice even lines here as much as I possibly can. Let's measure these out. I believe they were originally 15 by 30 each, so let's see what it's at right now. So that one ended up being 14.5 by 29 as far as where that grass actually grew in. So I'm just gonna measure these out, each one of them, and see how close I can get to each one being as even as possible, and then squaring them off as even as possible too. If you look down this line here, we'll see just there's a whole bunch of wonky stuff going on, and it looks like, as bluegrass does, it's definitely spread quite a bit on those bluegrass plots out into this section. I'm gonna take the edger along here now and see if I can make a line with it. Spade. Well, that was somewhat painful, but probably necessary. I never like cutting into grass that's doing totally fine, but I would say the end result is worth it. It's just going to clean up these plots and make them look nicer so they're not so shaggy on the edges. I'll spare you the filming of all the rest of these. I'm probably not going to get it all done today because I want to talk about some other things here. And it's starting to get hot, and this next week it's supposed to be up to 103 without the heat index, so it should be nice and beautiful out here. Not so much, but obviously there's a whole bunch of weeds in between these. I'm trying to make them more even as well so I can figure out a plan for what I want to do between here. Originally I was thinking I was going to put down some sort of weed fabric and maybe something over top of it in between the plots, but that didn't happen because then I thought about it more and I was like, what do I put down in between that's going to stay in place? I couldn't think of anything that was going to be a good solution for that, and also I just didn't want to leave weed fabric open because it's usually typically black. That was going to get really hot and probably just burn the edges of the turf here that were right next to it. So I haven't come up with an exact plan for that yet. What I'm thinking is I may plant ryegrass in between here, but cut it down basically as low as I can get it to go, either with the rotary, or I could decide to do like a manual reel mow or something in between. So that would have still always be lower than I'm cutting these other grasses, but I just don't know. I don't know if I would like that look. I really like the look of the darker soil in between the plots. It makes them really well defined, but I just can't keep them clean. You know, this was a farm field last year, so there's plenty of stuff in the soil just waiting to come out, and it doesn't take long. So here's something that I also want to show you. A few weeks ago, I did a scalp down to 1.5 inches on this side of this ryegrass plot. And then right here is the line where I kept mowing this at 2.5. So this has been mowed at 2.5 the whole time. This over here I scalped down and let it come back to 2. So I've been mowing that at 2. And what I've been testing, which I'll show you in that larger ryegrass plot over there too, is I've been testing how to get rid of these stalks, or maybe is there a solution to transitioning back into green from this sort of semi-green, semi-brown sort of look going on here. So that definitely helped. You could definitely tell it in person. There's a distinct line right here. This side is actually mowed lower but looks better, and this one I never scalped at all, just left it as is. Let's head over there and I'll show you another test. Also have tons of deer traffic, I'm thinking, digging in here constantly. Got all these spots. So that's, yeah. And one other thing I forgot to mention about that plot test over there was that it has had 3 applications of equalizer since then. So I've done 1 application a week for the last 3 weeks. Okay, so 3 tests going on right here. This I scalped to 1 inch about 3 weeks ago, and I've been maintaining it at 1.5 inches. So slightly lower than that spot over there, but you can tell this line right here, you can tell how much greener this is. It has thinned out some since then, but I don't really see any more brown stalks in here. This section from here to here, I scalped this week down to 1.5 inches. And it's already really starting to want to come up from that. I can see quite a bit of green coming out. So that's looking better. Now right here, over that way, I just mowed to about 2 inches. So that'll give you a difference in height of cut, and also that hasn't been reset quite as low with that scalp. So this has had 2 applications of equalizer, this has had 1, and that has had 1 just this week. So these 2 areas, first time that they have had any fertilizer on those for a while. But you can see this green spot, this line that goes down, That's the one that has been reset 3 weeks ago. So maybe we're onto something here with this whole scalping deal. I guess moral of the story with that is that in warm season grass, you tend to do some scalping during different times of the year to reset things, to if you have some thatch going on or it's getting spongy or something. And then especially at the beginning of the year, scalp off all that dormant and dead stuff in warm season. It allows that regrowth to happen, and you know, that's really the way that it works in warm season stuff. But what if in cool season there's different ways to utilize a similar system? What I'm finding is that despite the fact that it's not a good time of year to do this, it's the middle of the summer, probably the worst conditions that we could possibly have in terms of stressing out a grass like I did. But it actually surprised me because it's done some things that I needed it to do, and the regrowth has actually happened fairly fast if you get some fertilizer on there. Not a ton of fertilizer, but the liquid applications have really helped to bounce back. And then also make sure that if it needs some water, it gets some water. But who would have thought middle of the summer, all these tests that I've been doing, that it would work out the way that it's been working out? You know, I've told you many times before that scalping cool season lawns is about the worst thing that you can do for it. But really that's a time after time after time type of thing. There are certain scenarios where maybe a one-time thing is needed in order to remedy a problem that's going on. And I think specifically with this ryegrass and all these brown stemmy plants that have happened this year, the only way that I've been able to reset that is to cut it down as low as I can, stress it for just about a week or so, make sure you get fertilizer on it, make sure you get water on it after that, and it actually has bounced back quite well. So this area out here was just a little taller, so I decided not to cut it down quite as low as that spot over there, but I did bite the bullet this week and really mow it off to try to do the exact same thing as that test over there. It's already starting to look greener and better. Just gonna need a few more weeks of recovery, and we're getting into 100-degree weather, so that may not happen as fast. Okay, time to talk about more test plots. So this area right here, so hopefully you can see behind me, this is a very distinct line of our fertilizer testing that I've been doing on a new fertilizer. It's not out yet. Still working on some of that stuff, but I want to keep, this is all fescue right here. I want to keep that, and this area, I think I don't need such a large plot over here. So let me measure out this actual fescue spot right here, which I want to keep, and then probably starting about whatever seems good, somewhere right in here, I'm going to use this area to the right of this here for some other plots, which we'll talk about. So right here I've got 40 feet by, I think, about the middle. I want to probably stay about to the middle of this plot, so 40 by 33 should work. I'll mark that. The nice thing about this over here is that I already have grass in place, so I don't need to completely redo this by any means. I'll probably just leave this little section as a buffer in between, but I'm going to go with 5 feet in between because my power rake is 5 feet, pretty close to it at least. So if I need to ever come through here and try to power rake something, then I'll have enough space. So I'm going to go with 5 feet. Ground is hard over here because I haven't been doing any watering at all. Same thing over here. This is the Kentucky 31, which is nice and toasty. So this section I actually have not watered at all. The reason being is that I know I need to overseed it, so I decided that, hey, let's see what it can actually survive during the worst part of the summer, first year planting, because no more seed needs to go down anyway. So you can see, very, very dry. It's going to be an interesting test, but we're going to leave this here, and then we're going to put a 5-foot buffer in between this plot and the next as well. Okay, so here's my other ideas for some plots. All really yet to be determined exactly where placement will go. I'm probably going to draw this out on some graph paper and see if I can figure out this whole mess of ideas that I have and where everything should go. So of course the Kentucky 31 is staying there. I will overseed that and actually probably put some water on it this fall and see what we can get it to look like with some fertilizer too. This little buffer section though, I have plenty of room to plant probably 2 or 3 more plots. So one of them will definitely be fine fescue in full sun. One of them will probably be something crazy like a buffalo grass or something else like that. That's just a not very typical thing. And then I'll probably, for sure, I'm gonna do some sort of micro clover somewhere too, just to see kind of what they are, what it actually looks like, how it behaves, how green does it stay, all those things. Over in this section, like I told you, where I just marked off, I've got plenty of space there for either my real mowing plots or I can do some non-irrigated work. So my plan is real mowing of each grass type, so rye, Kentucky blue, tall fescue, and the fine fescue. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do the fine fescue, but we might try it anyway. It doesn't like to stand up very well, and then I'll show you where I'm walking to right now. This was all weeds, and whatever you see over here on the bank pretty much was all the way that same height over here last year. It really looked like this edge of this ryegrass plot was going to be all the land that we had over to here that we were going to be able to use, but that is not the case. So our property goes to that pole right there, so I actually have a whole bunch more space out here. And so the long-term goal for this will be, one, there is going to be a Bermuda plot out here next summer, hopefully. I need to get all my irrigation stuff figured out and so many different water things figured out before I do any of that. But that's my goal, is to have a warm season plot out here, and the rest of it, I'm gonna have this sprayed out soon. I'm gonna to power rake it and make it look all nice and even and level, and I'm either going to put just some tall fescue out here to mow, or maybe considering doing bluegrass and letting it be more of a dormant state in the summertime. This pile is going away. That's just a pile of stuff that we need to get rid of. This is a pile of topsoil that is going to be kept but put somewhere else. And then this stuff over here is some more metal scrap that needs to go. So all of this will be cleaned out. Kelsey wants to put more wildflowers in a big bed over here and maybe something else. But then, like I said, I just want some nice mowable turf. It doesn't have to be anything like crazy high end that I'm doing over here, but that's the plan. Quick drive up the hill just to show you a couple spots out here of fescue. I want to show you this right here. So obviously you can see these huge cracks in the ground. This is a much sandier soil here too. You can tell the difference in the colors. Not a lot of organic matter in it, but look at this. So these plants are definitely dry. You can see the leaves are curled up on them. So they're not really growing or doing anything, but still very, very green. There's a few spots over here that must have been just a slightly different kind. Those look pretty brown. We'll see how much of that comes back. But pretty impressive stuff, actually. Eventually out in here, I think this is going to be my golf green area. So we're probably going to shape this so that it's higher. There's a natural slope that goes down through here, so we're probably going to shape this a bit more so that to bring up this level here in the middle and then have all the water go around it. But that's the eventual plan. That's just not going to be something I can handle right now. And then we got this whole open field for tee boxes, fairway, and all that fun stuff. So like usual, I'm filming at like the absolute worst time of the day. I can't even see, it so bright out here, but probably looks a little different up here since the last time I showed you what was going on. So if you've been paying attention to my other channel, you know what's going on with the build and all that stuff. I'm filming a series for that, following along with what's going on with the building. So if you want to see that, that's on my other channel. But I haven't measured this out yet, and I've never really designed my own front yard before, so I have to think about this and think pretty extensively about how big I want it to be and where we're gonna start with that whole golf thing in the future. Can't bite off too much right now because I don't have an irrigation system up here in the ground. I'm probably this fall gonna have to do a temporary type of sprinkler up above the ground type of system to grow in some of the famous ryegrass up here. But so this all has to come in yet, and then our septic system has to be dug in over here. That's going to be done around the end of August, and then that whole field will be ready for me to do whatever I want. If it looks like we might get decent rain this fall, I may end up trying to plant it with tall fescue or something that's going to be better for no irrigation out in that field for the next year or however long it takes before I get to the golf project. Or otherwise, I may just plant like I did last year. I planted cereal rye, which is a cover crop, out into here. That worked really well. It kept the weeds down. So if it looks like it's just going to be a year where it's going to be iffy for me to plant anything and actually get some rain, then I'll probably just go with a cover crop again. Back at the shade testing area and outside of there, so I haven't showed this too much, but last year this was just filled with berries, and I've been continually mowing it down, and this is where we actually did our camping this year, where we placed tents, and then down right behind me right there is the actual fire pit and all that stuff. But out here this year, I would like to really level it out nicely and plant some turf in here. That's going to be probably not the shade stuff. I think there's enough sun out here that I may go with like a tall fescue. It'll be a nice area that we can still put our tents on and stuff, but we're going to keep some wood chips. We have wood chips out here, so I'm going to spray this. We'll get a nice area of wood chips put in here just for where we want to place our table when we come out and cook and stuff like that. And then the rest of it, I'm going to plant with some grass. And then over here, right through here, where this gets a lot of shade, to do one more shade test of bluegrass, ryegrass, and fescue out here, because a lot of you have been wondering the stuff that I was out in those front plots that's in full sun, how would it do in a more shady situation? So I thought this spot right here, I won't plant very big plots, just something right through here that we can test all that, and it's pretty much in the shade all day, a little bit of filtered light, but pretty much shade. Well, I am tired just explaining all that upcoming work that's about to happen, but that's what I need to do in order to get some of these experiments that I want to do in place for the next season, and I'm looking forward to all of it. I'm going to start doing some spraying and getting some plots ready within the next week or so. Bluegrass should go down here about mid-August once we get past this 100-degree heat wave. Hopefully it cools down a little, and then I'll probably be starting to seed. So stay tuned for all that stuff. Thanks so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.